Here lived a young girl named Wendy Darling with her two younger brothers, John and Michael. Their house was filled with love, laughter, and the watchful eyes of their parents and their faithful dog, Nana. Every evening, Wendy would weave enchanting tales for her brothers. Stories of a fantastical place called Neverland, a magical island where children never had to grow up. These weren't just bedtime stories. They were a portal to another world, a world of pirates, fairies, and endless fun. The boys would listen, wide-eyed, dreaming of sword fights and soaring through the clouds. Little did they know, their greatest adventure was about to begin. Not in their dreams, but right in their very own nursery. One particularly starry night, as the three darling children were nestled in their beds, something extraordinary happened. A faint golden light flickered by the window, and a boy, seemingly no older than Wendy, flew into their room. He wasn't alone. A tiny, sparkling fairy, buzzing with a mischievous energy, darted around him like a firefly. This was the legendary Peter Pan and his fairy companion, the one and only Tinker Bell. Why were they here? Well, Peter was on a mission. On a previous visit to listen to Wendy's stories, he had hastily escaped and accidentally left his shadow behind. Wendy, ever so kind and practical, woke up and wasn't scared at all. She saw Peter's predicament and cleverly offered to help, sewing his shadow right back onto his feet. Overjoyed to be whole again, Peter Pan wanted to thank her in the grandest way he knew. He made an offer that no child could refuse, an invitation to Neverland. Not just for Wendy, but for John and Michael too. The brothers, woken by the commotion, could hardly believe their ears. The hero from Wendy's stories was real, and he was inviting them to his home. But how would they get there? You can't just walk to Neverland. Peter explained the secret. All it takes is faith and trust, and a little bit of pixie dust. Tinker Bell, though a bit jealous of the attention Peter was giving Wendy, obliged. She flew around them, showering them in her shimmering, magical dust. Peter instructed them to think their happiest thoughts. John thought of adventure, Michael thought of candy, and Wendy thought of flying. And just like that, it worked. They floated off their beds, one by one, hovering in the air of the nursery. With Peter Pan leading the way, they flew straight out the open window, soaring high above the chimney pots and gaslights of London. The city looked like a blanket of twinkling stars below them as they followed their guide. The second star to the right, on a journey across the night sky over vast oceans and misty mountains. After a long and exhilarating flight, they finally arrived. Neverland. It was more beautiful and more wild than anything Wendy had ever described. It was an island of incredible contrasts, with lush, magical forests, sparkling mermaid lagoons, and dark, mysterious caves just waiting to be explored. It was a world alive with possibilities. Soon after they landed, Peter introduced them to his gang, the Lost Boys. They were a group of rambunctious children, each one having fallen out of their prom as a baby and, unclaimed, brought to Neverland by Peter. Just like him, They never aged. They lived in a secret underground home and spent their days playing games and having adventures. Wendy, John, and Michael were welcomed into the group, and Wendy quickly became a mother figure to them all, telling them stories just as she had for her brothers. Neverland was full of wonders. Peter took them to meet the beautiful but slightly vain mermaids who sunbathed on the rocks of the lagoon. They visited the home of the fairies in Pixie Hollow. They even forged an alliance with the island's Native American tribe and their brave princess Tiger Lily, who respected Peter for his courage and free spirit. Life was a whirlwind of fun, games, and discovery. But where there is light, there is also shadow. And the darkest shadow in all of Neverland belonged to the infamous Captain Hook. Hook was the cunning and cruel leader of a band of pirates who lived on their ship, the Jolly Roger, anchored just off the coast. He harbored a deep, bitter grudge against Peter Pan. Why? Because in a past duel, Peter had cut off Hook's hand and fed it to a giant crocodile. The crocodile had enjoyed the taste of Hook so much that it had been following him ever since, hoping for the rest of him. The only warning Hook ever had of its approach was the sound of a clock it had also swallowed, tick-tock, tick-tock. This constant reminder of his impending doom fueled his obsession with getting revenge on Peter Pan. Hook and his bumbling first mate, Mr. Smee, were always concocting evil plans to capture Peter and his friends. The carefree days of games and exploration soon took a dangerous turn. One fateful day, while Peter was away, Captain Hook saw his chance. He and his pirate crew descended upon the Lost Boys' hideout and captured everyone, Wendy, John, Michael, and all the Lost Boys. They were tied up and taken back to the Jolly Roger. Hook's plan was diabolical. He would force them to walk the plank one by one, sending them to a watery grave, or, worse, into the waiting jaws of the ticking crocodile. He gloated over his victory, believing he had finally outsmarted his nemesis. Wendy tried to be brave for the boys, but they were all terrified. It seemed like their incredible adventure was about to come to a tragic end. But Captain Hook had underestimated Peter Pan. Tinker Bell, who had escaped the pirates' grasp, flew as fast as her little wings could carry her to find Peter. When she told him what had happened, Peter's playful demeanor vanished, replaced by a steely determination. He wasn't going to let Hook harm his friends. With Tinker Bell at his side, he raced to the rescue. Just as the first lost boy was about to be pushed off the plank, Peter Pan arrived with a triumphant crow. An epic battle erupted on the deck of the Jolly Roger. It was Peter Pan and the newly freed Lost Boys against Captain Hook and his entire pirate crew. Swords clashed, cannons fired, and the air was filled with shouts and the clang of steel. The climax of the fight was a final, breathtaking duel between Peter Pan and Captain Hook. They fought high up in the ship's rigging, a dizzying dance of skill and daring. Hook, for all his wickedness, was a formidable swordsman, but he was no match for Peter's youthful speed and clever tricks. With a brilliant move, Peter disarmed Hook and cornered him. Panicked, Hook stumbled backward and fell overboard, right into the sea where the ticking crocodile had been patiently waiting. With a terrified splash and a yelp, Captain Hook swam for his life. The crocodile hot on his heels, the tick-tock sound fading into the distance. Seeing their captain defeated, the rest of the cowardly pirates scrambled into a lifeboat and rowed away as fast as they could, abandoning their ship. With the pirates gone, the Jolly Roger belonged to them. Peter, ever the charismatic leader, declared himself the new captain. They had a pirate ship. But Wendy, John, and Michael knew their adventure had to end. They were starting to miss their parents and their cozy bed. They were ready to go home. Peter, though sad to see them go, understood. He asked Tinker Bell for one last big favor. She flew all around the pirate ship, sprinkling it from top to bottom with her magical pixie dust. With a happy thought, the ship groaned, lifted out of the water, and began to fly. Guided by Peter, they sailed the Jolly Roger through the clouds, all the way back to London. They arrived at the nursery window just as dawn was breaking. Wendy, John, and Michael were overjoyed to be home. They said their goodbyes to Peter and the Lost Boys. Peter Pan promised Wendy he would never forget her and that he would come back to visit so he could hear more of her stories. With a final, cheerful crow, he and Tinker Bell steered the ship back towards the second star and the distant shores of Neverland, where their adventures would continue forever. Wendy, John, and Michael did grow up, as all children do, except for one. But even as adults, they never forgot their flight to Neverland. They passed the story down through their family, always remembering the boy who wouldn't grow up and the magical land where dreams and children could fly. And that is the timeless tale of Peter Pan.